because we've got this little bit of extra time, we're going to do our big season predictions. I don't know if we probably should have planned this, had some big sexy music, attention bed, some awards music, something like that. We do. Apparently we've got some. Here we go. Production. Okay. That's what we've got for you.
Upgrades in the production.
Okay, let's save this for the Super Bowl picks. This feels like we've gone too early on the tension music. So Phoebe Schechter, former NFL coach, and myself, Will Gavin, NFL nerd. We're going to make our picks for the 2024 season. I've been on numerous podcasts, radio shows, everywhere, going through this. You get asked every time, but these are our definitive ones, Phoebe.
Oh, for sure. Will not change. This is pretty much predicting the future.
What you say here will go on record, and we will revisit it in February in New Orleans when we're both there on Radio Row, okay?
Perfect. I can't wait to address this.
Absolutely. So we're going to go through our division winners and wildcards first and foremost. NFC or AFC first? Go on, your pick.
Oh, let's go AFC.
We'll go AFC first. Right, I'm gonna let you roll and see who I've got versus it. Let's start with your division winners across the AFC.
Okay, let's go.
It's almost like you had this planned in advance.
It's almost like I had
AFC
it
West.
planned in advance.
I'm gonna go through them.
I'm gonna go. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna say the Jets are gonna win the East.
Wow. Okay, big and bold from moment one.
Yep. My brain is shutting down. I'm going to say the Bengals.
Okay, love it.
Okay. I'm going to say, wait, am I going the whole thing? You go.
Okay. I have got the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East, and I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Is that because of my sweater?
Your Buffalo Bills. It's a sensational sweater, but I do have the Jets as a wild card team. Spoiler warning. But I've got the Bills as my AFC East winners. I do also have the Cincinnati Bengals as my AFC North winners, although I think that, for me, is the toughest division in football. I think
Agreed.
You could make a case for any of those four teams, Steelers, the Browns, the Ravens, any of them winning it. I think the Ravens have a slower start because of what we were talking about in the build-up to this game with what they've got on defense, the need to reset, the players that they've lost, the coordinator, most importantly, they've lost. So I think the Bengals take advantage of that. I do have the Chiefs winning the AFC West.
Standard. Wouldn't expect anything less.
And for the AFC South, go on, who you got?
I've got the Texans.
I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Really?
That's
a shock.
My first big... the producer on the other side of the glass just shook his head and looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Let me roll some things out for you.
Okay.
The Jacksonville Jaguars were 8-3 last season and sat in the number 1 seed before Trevor Lawrence got hurt. And that was without an ex-receiver. They were basically playing 4 wide receivers who should all be playing in the slot and be playing in the same position.
Fair.
Between the 2 bye weeks, the 2022 bye week, the 2023 bye week, the Jaguars went 14-4. And that was the defense which was slowly improving over that time but hadn't hit its peak yet. I think the Jaguars are a much better football team than people are giving them credit for. And I say that as a guy who's not a big Doug Peterson fan. I think, like, when he went and won
I didn't know you weren't a Doug Peterson fan.
It's not that I love the man.
Yeah.
Big darts guy, big loves the Brits. No problem with him. I think, like, he's not Nick Sirianni, who's this big vibes head coach at the Eagles. And it was really, I think, obvious to me when he lost that coordinator talent why they had that drop-off last year. But you saw the same when Doug Peterson was Eagles head coach and he lost his 2 coordinators. I think he is a guy who relies on his brain trust a lot, which I think can be a very enviable thing in a head coach. It can be a brilliant thing, but also it means if you have a brain drain and you're not able to fill in for it, that can be a problem. But I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to come out. They're going to prove a bunch of people wrong this year. And I think the Houston Texans go from they had the 3rd easiest schedule in football last year to, I think, the 3rd or 4th hardest.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a little bit of a drop off on the defensive side of the ball, even though I think they've got some all-pro guys and guys like Derek Stingley Jr. Absolutely love.
Yeah.
They lost a key pass rusher, but then they managed to bring in Danielle Hunter, who is one of the best in the league. So they've replaced the talent. I still have them as a wild card team.
For sure.
But I fancy the Jacksonville Jaguars to be like a 12-13 win division winner.
I mean, your argument allows me to see why you would put them in there. And I think that the Jags should be within the realm as a wild card. I mean, I think I would be lying to you if I said the Bills weren't going to be in there as well. You've got Josh Allen. You've always got a chance. Although there's been a lot of hate, I would say.
I considered Josh Allen for my MVP.
Yeah.
Because MVP is a regular season award.
Yeah.
I think the Bills, because there's that kind of storyline nature to it, I think the Bills have a bit of a bounce back this year, win the division more handily, and then people kind of go, oh, Josh Allen, he's back. He can go and win a Super Bowl again, and then they fall over in the playoffs like they always do.
But they've got more receivers now, and you bring in Keon Coleman, who is just a delight of a human. He is just loved by the media, and I think he's going to be the number one guy, essentially, that Josh Allen's been needing. I think, and that's also why Josh kind of gets put to the side, because they haven't had this kind of consistent, powerful offense.
I'm struggling with my AFC wildcard. I'm going to give you my 4, who it's between.
Okay.
And it's the Ravens, the
Understood.
Dolphins, the Jets,
Okay.
and the Los Angeles Chargers. I love the Chargers this year.
I do too.
Jim Harbaugh, when he came into that dross 49ers team and turned them around, when he came into that dross Michigan team and turned them around, when they've gone and got the perfect player for his system in Joe All, when we've got a guy like that working with Joe Burrow then, when we've got a guy like that working with Justin Herbert, working with all those talented pieces on the defense, I know they've had to sign some old guys to 1-year contracts to get them over the line, but I also look at how their season starts, and the schedule for the beginning of the year for the Chargers it's not a murderer's row. Let's put it that way. The Raiders, the Panthers, the Steelers, they do have the Chiefs in week 4.
Okay.
Then the Broncos, the Cardinals, the Saints, the Browns. I think they could go 8-1 to start the season. And if they're 8-1 to start the season, they've got to be a wildcard team. So who do I drop? Do I think the Jets don't make it with Aaron Rodgers? Do I think the Dolphins don't make it despite all their offensive weapons?
I don't think they're going to make it. I think they're going to be underrated. Overrated. Sorry. I mean, do you think they're going to be able to do it? I have been losing faith in them. I don't know at the end of the day if they have the right quarterback. I love McDaniel. I love his offensive kind of quirky genius that he brings to the table. Is Tua ever going to be the guy?
I'm going Ravens, Jets, Chargers. You've convinced me. You've talked me into it. Sorry, Miami. You're out of there.
Knocked up out of there. Alrighty.
Let's do our conference championship as well.
Oh.
I had the Cincinnati Bengals heading to Super Bowl 59 by beating the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC Championship game.
Ooh.
I had to follow up on my Jags love from the division championship. I felt like I had to keep that rolling.
Okay. So I'll go Bengals being the Texans then.
We're both super high on the Bengals.
Honestly, and I've gotten a lot of people that don't agree with me, but I genuinely think if you have a healthy Joe Burrow throwing to your Jamar Chases, your T. Higgins, I mean, keep in mind, they were the only team to really challenge the Chiefs in the past few years, even when Joe Burrow wasn't healthy. So imagine what they're going to be able to do with everybody firing on all cylinders, a defense that kept them in it, again, when they didn't have Joe Burrow.
Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator of the Bengals. There are very few men I have bigger man crushes over. Just adore him. Absolutely adore him.
Absolutely. And then you've got the consistency of having them year after year. I mean, Joe Burrow has literally got an entire city to fall in love with him. And his relaxed, very cool nature is exactly what they need there. With all of his weapons around him, for me, Bengals are going to be the ones that make it to the Super Bowl.
I really like Jermaine Burton, the guy they signed in the 3rd round this year. I do think we need to see if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both end up having, after a disturbed off-season, they end up coming out and firing from day one. And look, I have been, and this is maybe me having to accept that I'm not always correct on things.
What?
I have maybe been a little bit hard on Zach Taylor in the past. I think he's deserved it. I think he cost that team that Super Bowl. I think they should have beaten the Rams, and his inability to pass protect Joe Burrow and leave extra men in and chip block and do anything other than throw 5 offensive linemen who were incapable of doing a job against Aaron Donald into the mix. The scheme wasn't good enough.
No, I agree.
I think we saw last year when Joe Burrow goes down and Jake Browning comes in, Zach Taylor had to admit, right, I haven't got Joe Burrow now. I need to do something. So suddenly, I thought they were sensational.
Yes, and the offensive line was wonderful, and they protected him. I mean, this is what they needed. They needed that with Joe Burrow in there. And now we finally got all of the puzzle pieces together to make their Super Bowl run.